नमस्ते, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया। I am JVN Dr.Anamika Ahirwar, Associate Professor in the Department of Science and Technology at Jayoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. Today I am going to take the lecture on the topic limitations of relational model. Limitation of relational model, it is just a relational model, okay, which is supplanted the network and hierarchical model, so to will the object oriented model supplant the relational model. Is this true? Why? Okay, so the major strength of the relational model are, okay, first is the data model, and access is simple to understand and use. I have already discussed relational model in the previous videos. Those who have not attended or watched that video, first go to that video and then after that listen this, okay. So इसमें क्या होता है कि जो एक्सेस होता है डेटा का, जैसे कि मॉडल डज नॉट रिक्वायर, कोई भी मॉडल को नेविगेशन की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं होती एज ए नेटवर्क मॉडल में, ठीक है. तो दिस अलाउज डिक्लेरेटिव क्वेरी लैंग्वेजेस, ओके. So there are straightforward database design procedures. So these admits a solid and well understood mathematical foundations, and these are implemented techniques are well known, efficient and widely used. So these are the major strength, you can say. Standards exist between both for query language, that SQL, and for interfaces via programming languages, embedded SQL, ODBC. So why expand to another model? Okay, हमें ज़रूरत क्यों पड़ी इस मॉडल को दूसरे मॉडल को एक्सपेंड करने की? Why go beyond the R model? Some forms of data and knowledge which cannot be accommodated easily and adequately. So the object-oriented programming languages are emerging as the dominant form within development environments for large-scale software systems. Language-independent system environments which are based upon object-oriented model are emerging and may be extremely important in the future. So the object management group, that is OMG standard. The first limitation is some forms of data and knowledge which cannot be accommodated easily and adequately. There are always very special types of data which require special forms of representations. Temporal data, spatial data, multimedia data, unstructured data, document libraries, and the limitation regarding SQL3 as the query language, that is recursive queries. So this is the first limitation, okay. And object identify, if we are talking about, then entity relationship model in this object types just such as employee, department, project, etc. are specified in the R model. So these survives only as names of relations or tables. So in R model, entities have no independent identification of existence, objects and identified and accessed via identifications of attributes characterizing them. Just for an example, a company database will have an entity of employee, yet in the R model, the employee exists by virtue of a list of attributes in some tables. You see in this diagram, this is an entity relationship diagram. In this employer, this ER model express entities and relationships were specified in the R model. The identities of relations have no explicit relations. So the relationship must be known to the user. There are hidden semantics in R model. Okay. So they are in entity relationship, supervisor is shown, but in here it is not shown in the R model. So the structured data objects, the first NF, you have learned about that NF, and this stipulates that the value for attributes in a row be atomic, prevents complex value below in which the values of the domains are themselves rows. There's no collection types. Okay, in this name, NI, DOB, address, gender, salary, employee number. This name is correlated with the first name, initial, and the surname. Address is subdivided into number, street, and so on. So this is the structured data objects. Now come to the generalization and inheritance. The classes of entities to be modeling a database often have natural hierarchical structure. So the classes of object associated with a type higher is a superset of that association, and every employee is a teacher, every student instructor is both a student and instructor. Classes below inherit attributes from those above in this inheritance into in our model. Okay, so this is, you can say, the node parent one person divided into student employee, and this employee will be teacher and the student is instructor. So this is a specialization and this is a generalization. Okay, now come to the methods. In the methods, often it is convenient to record explicitly special queries on a database. Our model for uh, read-only queries, this is accomplished via views, cost overhead, and need system to maintain the current value. So the R model of updates has no similar mechanism. Procedures must be maintained outside of the model itself. Just for an example, add employee. Okay, add means address of the employee. Okay, and come to the strategies of for addressing issues. There are two main philosophies in this. The first philosophy is extend the R model to accommodate features to overcome these shortcomings, and second is the start for scratch. It is not feasible to extend the R model in this way. So these both approaches have been tried over the past 20 years. Now come to the extension to the R model. A number of vendors have added special features to their R database. Okay, so the constraint are the any extension must be compatible with the SQL2, SQL92, Standard Oracle, IBM, HP, Informix, um, Illustra, Myco, UniSQL. So although features may be similar, they are not compatible beyond the SQL2 level. Now, in addition, there have been attempts to extend SQL to accommodate desired features. So, this is a standard which has recently been completed and addressed some of the concerns. And SQL4, if we are talking about, it is a standard which is currently under development to address their issues. And these standards attempt to be compatible with earlier versions of SQL with small changes. Now, fundamentally, object-oriented systems are, during the past 20 years, a number of object-oriented database systems have been developed. So these largely abandon the R model and start from scratch with an object-oriented database. Key examples are O2, Gemstone, Object Store. Okay, so these in this each system displayed strengths for certain types of applications, and the system are not compatible with each other. This lead to needs for standards for next generation of systems, ODMG, that is Object Database Management Group. And the overall summary of current directions are: first, bring databases ideas into the existing object oriented world, right? So the database model is inherently object oriented. Okay, so in this relational ideas are abundant. Okay, and second is that there's no standalone query languages, and another is the access to the database query requires a host of object oriented programming language. Emerging standards, ODMG proposals. Now this bring object oriented concept into the existing relational database world. The R model is extended to admit certain object-oriented ideas, and the access via an extended version of SQL. Access via queries embedded in programming languages is also applicable. Emerging standards SQL 3, SQL 4, and develop a general framework for manipulating objects in an interoperable environment. Framework is not specific to database management system, and this deals with general object services in a distributed heterogeneous environment. Existing standards, object management group proposals, and if we are talking about the bottom line, which is best? So the relational model v, object oriented model v, object oriented model. Okay, this depends on the application at hand. No one of these is superior to the others in all possible situations. A better understanding of these approaches can help to decide which is most appropriate for a given application. Now come to the summary of the efficiency of these approaches. SQL 3 and 4, these are the extensions to add some needed features, but definitions seems to be ad hoc and not based upon sound object oriented theory. ODMG proposal में क्या है कि foundations are more solid to object oriented system, but advantages of R model are lost. So need to expertise to use systems. Schemas design is much more involved. In many cases, the system are oriented towards a specific object-oriented host language. OMG framework means it is already becoming standard details of which are outside the scope of the module. So this is all about today's session. This session powered by digital version 2.0 Jayoti Vidyapeeth Women's University Jaipur. Hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you.